This is Ray Mofield again with the oral history microphone. We're visiting around various places in Marshall County. Today we're on Hauser Road, and we're visiting in the home of Mr. and Mrs. Clarice Cunningham.
Yeah.
Now, she was a Meyer, she tells me, before she married, and we'll start off. We usually start off by asking the man of the house how old he is.
I'm 73, Ray.
Now, Mr. Cunningham, I remember you when you worked at Treese Lumber. You ran the shop there.
Yeah.
And you're an important man in my life because in 1967, I read an article by an ornithologist in Birmingham, Alabama, and he told how to make a bluebird house and attract bluebirds. And so I took those plans and we went over to your place and figured out how to make a bluebird house, and you built the first one I ever tried. In fact, we got two of them. And I put those up on the 14th day of February 1967. And that afternoon I had two bluebirds in the house.
Well, Ray, I built a lot of bluebird houses. I built them for you.
Yeah.
But before I started my carpenter work, I started out over at Paducah as a young boy at the Paducah Box and Basket Factory and made bushel baskets, half bushel baskets, and strawberry crates.
Mm-hmm.
I made more bushel baskets, half a bushel basket, strawberry crates, and you could stack in the entire city of Benton in my life.
Yeah.
I made as many as 10,000 strawberry crates in 8 hours.
Oh, I didn't know that. There must have been machinery that
I run a machine and made them, yes, sir.
Uh-huh.
And had about a dozen. It fed the stuff into it, and I operated the machine.
Well, you were important in my lifetime in another way that I have just now realized, and that is that Dad moved around various farms, and in '38 we moved to a farm near Hardin that's owned by the banker there, Dave Booker. Well, we decided we'd try strawberries as a money crop. Tobacco didn't do too well. So we put out 3 acres of berries, and that made it possible in a way for me to go to college. I went to Murray State and graduated in 3 years, starting in the fall of 1940, and we had good berry crops. Of course, I picked as well as kind of supervised the pickers. And I'd pick about 3 crates a day. Well, before that, I'd work all day scraping corn on the farm. You make $1, sunrise to sunset. Well, berries were just fabulous, I thought, because I picked 3 crates, and that is $3.60 a day.
Well,
you got a nickel a quart for picking them.
yeah.
$1.20 a crate. Back then, they had 24-quart crates. Some of them now use 16-quart crates.
Well, I picked a lot of strawberries in my life as a boy. Come up, that's the way we made our spending money and all.
Mm-hmm.
And come on up, then I learned how to play music. They got a string band, and I picked up quite a bit of money playing for dances and so on like that. Mm-hmm. And then I went to public work. I went to Paducah, and I left there and went to Treese Lumber Company, and I put up 20 years in Treese Lumber Company. And I've done a little everything that was to be done at Treese Lumber Company. And he's one of the swellest men I ever walked in.
Mr. Cliff was a dandy, wasn't he?
He sure was. I never asked him for a raise in my life. Every time I asked him, he said, "You know, I've been thinking about giving you a raise." He said, "You'll get her on this check." Just as sure as I asked him, that's what he told me every time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just tell you another little trick. One time, I used to drive him a lot in his car. And one day it was a big snow, and I carried him to see a gentleman that owed him a bunch of money. Mm-hmm. And before we got there, he took out his billfold, and he said, "Here." He said, "Put this in your pocket." He said, 9 times out of 10, he said, that gentleman want to borrow a few dollars off me. And he said, if I ain't got it, said, if you got my billfold, he said, I won't tell no lie.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought how funny that was. Him trust me with his billfold. And
Yeah.
I put his billfold in my pocket till we left. And then we left, I give it back to him.
Mm-hmm.
He was the swellest guy I ever worked for.
He had a lot of faith in you, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
He surely
He
did.
sure did.
Well, that makes you appreciate a fella even more.
And when he put me in the shop to help a few days, while the boy in there, the old man, Uncle Tom Jones, got sick. And he asked me, he said, will you go in and help that boy pack stuff to him? I told James West, I said, why, James, I can do this. And he said, well, get going. And so I started in. Mr. Tree slipped up and watched me one day. I didn't know he was watching me. And I was really driving the nails trying to have him catch up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Tree stuck his head around the side of the door and he said, Clarice, said, I didn't know you could drive a nail like that. And I said, well, any farm boy can. He said, how do you like staying here? And I said, fine. He looked at James, said, James, how's it suit you? He said, doggone, he's the best guy I ever had to help me.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I'm going to give you a raise. Said, you've got a job as long as you live.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing about it. If I'd have stayed able to work, I'd still been there today.
Uh-huh.
And Tree Lumber Company was a real place to work at. That's all it was to it.
Well, that's wonderful. We'll perhaps retrace some of those days. Before we get too far away, though, I'd like to ask you a little bit about your parents. Your father's name
Was Adam Lloyd Cunningham.
and your mother.
Izor Cunningham. Sure, her name was Izor Cole before she married.
She was a Cole.
Yeah.
All right. Do you remember the grandparents on either side?
Yeah, my grandparents on my daddy's side was James Monroe, is his name, and my grandmother was named Elizabeth. And on my mother's side, I don't recall too much about my parents because my grandfather was dead before I ever remembered, and my grandmother was an old woman. But I remember when I was a kid, she was real old, and she had long, coal black hair, not a gray hair in her head. And she could sit in a straight chair and comb part of the middle and comb and touch the ground on each side of the floor on each side.
Well, isn't that beautiful? That would have been beautiful.
And
Now, were you born in Marshall County?
no, I was born in Graves County.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Graves County down on Sugar Creek, they called it. Went to Bond School.
Bond School.
Yeah, it used to be a school down in my country named Bond School.
Was that sort of toward Marshall, or was it the other side?
Oh, it's way on down in Graves County, about 5 miles from Simpsonia, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was
When did you come to Marshall?
when I married about 1940. I married and moved up here in Marshall County.
Well, I better talk to this woman over here then a little bit. Let's see. Now, your name is,
Irene Cunningham.
and before you married, you were
Irene
Meyer. And were you born in Marshall County?
Yeah, in Scale, over Scale.
In the heart of downtown Scale. That's, I said that because Shelby McCallum used to make remarks like that, like in the heart of downtown Possum Trough. Well, my wife is sort of from the Scale area, although she was born in Church Grove. But I think her father was from Scale, Ezra Blumenberg. And I don't know if you ever knew him or not, but when I first started going down there, Scale was, let's see, the bottom road crossed a road along there, and there was a little grocery store in the corner.
Well,
and a gas pump, and how big was Scale when you first knew it?
well, I never did remember it. I was born in July, and my mother passed away in March the next year.
So you moved somewhere else then?
We come back up this way and lived down the road a piece in a two-roomed house.
Right, where did you go to school?
New Constitution and Van Zoen.
You went to two of the great institutions then of Marshall County
That's right.
education. Now tell me a little bit about this new constitution. Where was it?
It's right up here by Harvey, where Lake Smith used to live.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a school teacher.
Mm-hmm. You remember any of your first school teachers?
They like I went to Vida Cole
Vatico.
and the Green
Well,
Girls.
that's enough. We'll
Alden Darnell.
uh-huh. Well, that's very good. There, I think there was a Darnell school somewhere in the county
I don't know
one
what
time.
that's at. Well,
that we
And
had about 50 altogether.
and
One-room
it's the
schools.
Green Girls, and I can't think. I just saw Leela Green. I
Mhm.
think.
Yeah. Okay. What'd you like most about school?
Well, I guess arithmetic.
Mm-hmm. Now, tell me how you met this gentleman over here.
Well, his friend brought him up to my house, and so well,
What-
we got to going together.
Wasn't a
then.
blind date, was it?
Well, he just come with his friend, and then we got to going together.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So was it sort of love at first sight?
Well, I can't remember that. I think he went with other girls, and I went with other boys. Then we ended back going back together, and then we got married.
Mm-hmm. Well, did you have any children?
We got 2 daughters.
Do they live anywhere in this part of the country?
Judy Philbeck lives right down the lane here, and Shirley King lives in Terry, Texas.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a long ways off. Well, do you have any grandchildren?
We got 4 grandchildren. Greg Philbeck and Mickey Reeves and Troy Denhart and Calvin King,
Mhm.
and got 1 great grandbaby.
Mhm.
And
Well, now, Greg Philbeck, does he have a sister?
Mickey.
Uh-huh. Now, Greg Philbeck's one of the smartest people we ever had in the county. Isn't
Oh,
he?
he's smart. Not 'cause he's my grandson, but he's smart now.
He won a scholarship, making all A's at the valedictorian to high school, and he worked the radio station. Although he hasn't majored in broadcasting, I believe he's been in, engineering physics or something like that.
I can't hardly remember all them big words.
But now he's won a scholarship to Vanderbilt. Well, I congratulate him and you and your husband on that, and his parents, of course.
My great grandbaby is named Krista McCall Reeves.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, we finally now while he was getting this job at Paducah and all that, were you married then?
No,
Right on the life reward.
yeah,
Did you ever move to Paducah?
no. We lived down there. Then I bought this for where we're living now before me and him ever married.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for that little interjection. We may come back and get you again here. Now we've got established that you finally married and you had children, and now you have grandchildren and so on.
Yeah. Well, we happy with their children and grandchildren. We never had no trouble with none of them, and we've always made it good with them. And that's one thing I can say. I'm happy with my children,
Now,
and they've all got good educations. Every one of my children and grandchildren's got a good education.
well, that's fine. Many parents, such as you, saw the importance of education and made an effort.
Yeah,
Of course, the children themselves have to want to go. You really can't just up and make them go.
that's right.
Not against their will, at least.
They've got to have the desire,
Mhm.
and Griggs down here, I believe, got the biggest desire of any man that I ever seen to get an education, because he's got his nose in a book all the time now. He's interested in,
Yeah.
and
Well, he's got this Sunday night radio program where he's kept up with the Billboard charts and the various things on this gospel singing that's the most popular numbers, and I really enjoy that. He does a lot of work keeping up with all those things and
but
requests.
it is. It's a lot of work, Ray, I'll tell you it is.
Mhm.
But he enjoys it, and he takes care of that, and he gives all that out over, tell the people about it and so on, and keeps up with all the popular songs. And,
Mhm.
well, he just enjoys it, and you've got to enjoy anything to do it. Get in life out of it.
Some of the things that he has done, I can't tell you right offhand. I don't remember, but I did notice in the college paper and from time to time that he had made trips representing the University at Murray and won some awards. Maybe you remember. Perhaps the grandmother over here would remember.
Well, I can't remember right now.
But didn't he go to Chicago or somewhere and enter a national contest? And
He went somewhere, but I forgot where it was at.
yeah. Anyway, he's done exceptionally well in school at Murray, and I'm sure he will at Vanderbilt also.
Oh yeah, they wanted another place, and so he just thought this would be closer to home.
I don't know if I got your age or not, but I believe you told me before we went on the air that you were old enough to testify. You're 65.
Yeah, 65, July the 20th. I was born July the 20th, 1920, and I was 65, July the 20th.
Well, while your husband was working, did you work outside the home? And
Oh, I went to Ashby's in 1970. Worked till they closed there, but I worked at Charlie Van's grocery over here for, I guess, 10 years
Mhm.
on the Mayfield Highway.
Mhm. So you were employed. Did the two of you ever have to leave this country like a lot of people did back in what we call the Depression years and go to Detroit? You didn't.
We have been to Wyoming to visit her daughter in Wyoming.
But you didn't. Of course, he was fortunate to work for Mr. Treese, and he had a good steady job.
That's right.
And he didn't have to get out like so many people did and go make cars or whatever they did in Detroit. Some of them, I'm sure, did other things. Was your father a farmer?
Yes, he was.
Did you ever have to help in
Oh.
farm chores?
He'd get me up real early of a morning. We'd hit that field, sucker tobacco.
Oh, me. I know what that is. How did you get the gum off your arms?
Well, I forgot. We just took, I guess, soap or something. I can't remember.
Grandma's lye soap.
Yeah, I kind of seem like I used to make that, or I ain't one make it, I don't know, but I think I have made it in time.
My wife always hated the worming part.
Oh, I can pull them things off, I just twist them in two.
Well, she was so picky Eunice that she'd knock those off with a stick and get them on the ground and then hunt up something and mash them. That is a long way around.
Boy, the biggest old things, wasn't they? Some of them would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was raised on the farm.
Well, what did you, I'm sure they always had a job for you.
Yeah,
dry apples.
Well, I don't think I dried too many apples back in them days. Oh, when my mother passed away, my sister raised me. I think I was 12 years old when she got married, or 13.
So you went to Wyoming one time. Did you like that country?
Yeah, that was the prettiest place I ever seen. They drove us up on my daughter did, left the road and went up in the mountain, and up there was a lake.
Mm-hmm.
Then she went on up further, and she had a Jeep. She just kept taking us up and just going on up.
Some of those areas like Jackson Hole, the Grand Tetons, and you see snow-capped peaks all
I
year.
think we could see the snow on the mountain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is really beautiful country.
Well, Ray, when we took that trip to Wyoming, we just took about a week or 2 weeks, something like that, and drove through, and stayed in motels and cooked out. That was the best trip, best life we ever lived. And it was hot weather, and then when you get up on them mountains in the morning, and we get out to cook at one of them little resorts, why, you nearly freeze to death, boy. You're talking about cold, that wind really coming across there. Lord, have mercy.
It is strange in a way how hot it can get in the daytime.
Yeah, Wyoming is a really beautiful place. I went all down that Indian reservation. Well, we went through quite a few states. I saw all the corn belts and the cotton belts and so on that all went through, and the wheat belts,
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. That's the only long trip I ever took, but that,
America's a big country. And
oh Lord, yes, it's a big country. Yeah, and we went nearly to that snow, and I went down to that lake. I see them people in swimming, there's goosebumps all over.
Oh, yeah.
I asked my daughter, I said, is that water that cold? And she said, just stick your hand in it, Dad. I walked down there and waved my hand there in the ice water. Wouldn't be no colder than that was. Lord have mercy now.
Well, it came right off of melting snow.
Well, we went nearly to the snow, and I always have hated it. I didn't go on up to that snow. You just went around and around and around, And the car she's driving was a four-wheel drive, and it had a speed meter on it, but it had another thing only called an indicator. It told how high you was.
Oh, yeah.
And I forgot how many 1,000 feet high we were, but we was way up in there. And you could look down and see way down the mountainside, and cars look about like your finger. And it was a river run down the mountain there, Ray. It run into a big funnel, and it really run in swift. Okay, say a mile down the river, there's a mountain. That river come out on the other side, and it's one of the prettiest places you ever see. It's a great, big, wide place, and they call them mountain trout. Well, they're anywhere from 6 to 14, 18 inches long, and you could put light bread in there, and boy, you talking about tearing that water up. They would really tear it up, but you couldn't fish for them there,
They had a controlled season.
Yeah.
But now that's pretty good eating when you.
Oh, yeah, they say them mountain trouts are good. And my son-in-law took me up in the mountain, and I saw all these antelopes. He showed me a bunch of antelope, and he said, now you watch them. We went around the mountain, come in on them, and we started down the mountain, and that thing, he was driving, sitting on 50 miles an hour, and them antelopes just loping right alongside of it. He slowed up, and he said, I don't want to scatter them. We went on around, looked over in the cabine. There's a bunch of deer, little bitty deers, Prettiest sight you ever see. And
Yeah.
and you couldn't go right up them mountains. You have to go around them.
Oh no, they're so steep you couldn't just drive straight out.
You go round and around,
Just a little bit at a time.
I've seen places look like 100 foot straight down where they'd cut through that rock, building that road. Ain't no telling what it did cost to build that road up that mountain there. That's about the biggest sight I ever saw in my life, anything like that.
So you can see how they'd sing where the deer and the antelope play.
Yeah. Well, my daughter killed, well, you know, it's a certain season up there, they antelope hunt. And she killed an antelope with one of these big high-powered rifles with a scope on it, you know.
One thing about it, you couldn't outrun them, could you? Not
Well,
on foot or a horseback either.
oh no, you couldn't keep up with them on a horse. I'll tell you, that boy was doing 50 mile an hour, and them things just loping along
Yeah.
right side of the truck, you know. And it was a gang of them too. They go in gangs, them antelope does. And you saw, I guess, last year when it was bad on television where all them antelopes tried to get over that fence. Well, I've been right along in there, and you see all them wind breaks where that is plank, you know, up there on. And I asked my son-in-law, I said, what's all that up there? It looked kind of like billboards, you know, but it weren't. And he said, that's snow breaks. He said the snow, said they keep the snow, said the snow plow come along, plow it off, and he said in 5 minutes the wind leveled it back off.
Blows it right back again.
And they had stakes stuck up on each side of the highway, you know. Oh, I say there's 8-10 foot high, you know. And he said, you see them? He said, that's what guides the snow plow to plow that snow off of the highway where they can see down there.
Oh yeah, otherwise it would be so deep they wouldn't know where the...
You couldn't even tell where the highway's at in the wintertime when it comes snow. For this place, all the squirrels, it looked like a lot of big trees there, you know, where they live. And of a night it'd get cool. You didn't have to have no air conditioning, you know. But daytime it'd get pretty warm. And of morning you get out and them squirrels just all around there. Which you never, they the first thing you just, they great big squirrels.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful country. And they have, if you like rodeos, they've got at Cheyenne, they have Frontier Days at Cheyenne. And that's a big annual rodeo. And of course, they kind of argue with the Calgary Stampede, which is the biggest in the world. But they're both great.
Oh, yeah.
And I've enjoyed watching a rodeo.
Well, I enjoy rodeos too, I'll tell you I do. But I'll tell you, that there, some of them, when them boys gets on them there, ride them, they get hung trying to get off, it looks like it's a pretty hard job to get off there.
Well, a lot of them get hurt.
If it weren't for them clowns, they would be up get it sometime.
Yeah, they certainly would.
Sure.
Well, you know, we've just about used up our time, but now if either of you have a funny story or your most embarrassing moment or something, we'd like for you to tell us.
Oh, Lord, Ray, I don't know what I'd tell. I've been in so many things down through life. Ain't no telling, I could tell 1,000 things. So I'll just say that I enjoy talking with you and hope you the best of luck.
Well, we appreciate that very much, and ma'am, we're delighted
I'm
that
just glad to have you in our home and enjoyed talking to you.
And if that rain keeps falling, you're going to have some roasting ears out there.
That's right. That's right.
I'm looking at a big corn patch across the way here, and there's some firewoods stashed out there. We don't need it today for sure, but sometime this year
We'll need it.
it probably will. We've enjoyed visiting today in the home of Mr. and Mrs. Clarice Cunningham, and we're on the Hauser Road, and this is your oral history microphone reporter, Ray Mofield. We return you now to our studio in Benton.